Welcome to multiple choice question 11 of the 2008 Mathematical Methods Exam 2. In this video we will be looking at the solution for this question. A reminder that this video is in no way endorsed by VCAA. Now before we move on, I just want to point out that the use of a CAS calculator is an efficient way to answer this problem. So question 11 is adjusted slightly from the exam. So we've just rewritten the rule for f of x compared to the original exam so that it now no longer has the modulus function in it, but this can now be used to still represent the probability density function for the continuous random variable x that's described in the question. So the question goes on to ask, the probability that x is less than 1.5 is equal to one of the following. So for this problem, we're going to start by actually sketching out the probability density function, and I'm going to use a calculator to help do that. On the CAS calculator, go into the main menu. Next, we want to graph a hybrid function, so I can go keyboard math 3, and there's this little icon here that will allow us to graph a hybrid function. So I'm just going to put the first two rows in and just understand that 0 elsewhere will apply. So I'm going to have 1 subtract x, and this is for x is greater than or equal to 0 but less than or equal to 1. And then for the second rule, it's x subtract 1, and that applies from 1, and x is greater than that but less than or equal to 2. So what we can now do is hit the graph icon, and I can drag this down and that will sketch the graph, and pressing the plus button on the hard keypad will allow me to zoom in and get a feel for that graph and where it exists. So having a look at what the calculator gave, I'm just going to sketch this out on a set of axes so that we can annotate it. So the probability density function looks something like this. And I didn't find all these points on the calculator, but you could have used the analysis GSolve menu to find these. But this point here is going to be at 0, 1. This point here is at 1, 0. And the endpoint up here would be 2, 0. And if this was a proper probability density function, if we were getting marked on this, we'd also need to draw in where it's 0 everywhere else. So we'd have open dots here, and we'd have straight lines pointing in either direction along the x-axis to represent that 0 elsewhere part of the probability density function. For this question though, we're just interested in the probability that x is less than 1.5. So 1.5 occurs here. So the probability that x is less than 1.5 is all of this shaded region that I'm just shading in at the moment. So we want to calculate the area under that curve. And I think it's going to be easier to actually find the area here. If I just sort of dot that in orange, if we calculate that area and then subtract it away from 1. And we can use a calculator to do that. Next on the calculator, we want to type in an integral to find an area under that curve. So I'm going to bring up the keyboard and go to Math 2. And I'm going to bring up the integral symbol, and we're going from 1.5 to 2. And this will apply for that second rule that's listed in the hybrid function above. So I'm just going to drag that rule down. I'm going to avoid putting the hybrid function inside the integral, as it can sometimes cause issues. Then we're going to complete that integral by putting the dx on the end, and then we're going to hit execute, and that gives the area on the right hand side of that graph will be 3/8. So the probability that x is less than 1.5 is equal to the total area under a probability density function, which is 1, minus the probability that x was greater than 1.5, which we dotted in orange above. So this is going to equal, and we have 1 minus, and then the calculator told us that the region to the right hand side of 1.5, so just to point out that little line there was 1.5, that gave a value of 3/8. Finally, just so I don't make any mistakes, I'm going to type into the calculator 1 subtract 3/8, which is equal to 5/8, and then I'm just going to highlight that, and I'm going to convert that to a decimal, so we get 0.625. So that is equal to 5/8, which we can also find as a decimal on the calculator is 0.625. So that means that D is the correct answer for this question. From the examiner's report, we can see that this question was reasonably well done, with 76% of students getting the correct answer.